Malcolm-Jamal Warner's mother and his wife are fighting over his money. Both of them loved him more than anything, but this isn't really about greed, family. It's about a mistake almost every family makes, and it's about to tear his legacy apart. If you have a mother in your life who has always protected you, and one day you and her build a family business of your own, you're going to face a moment where two people who love you don't fully agree on how to protect what's yours. This isn't just a celebrity story, family. This is what happens in real families every single day when nobody sits down and puts the hard conversations on paper before tragedy forces the issue. You'll walk away knowing exactly what to put in place now: a prenup, an updated will, an honest conversation with your mother and your spouse and your legal team, so the people you love aren't left fighting each other after you're gone. Two women who love the same man are now standing on opposite sides of a courtroom, and the only reason is a document he never got around to updating. That is very sad, family, very sad. Pamela Warner wasn't just Jamal's mother. She managed his career and served as his business partner for decades. The trust she oversees was set up in 1996, almost 20 years before he ever met his future wife. People are quick to call this control. But if you look at the timeline, it's really the continuation of a working partnership that existed long before Tanisha did. Let's stand on that. A mother who spent 30 years handling contracts and money decisions for her son isn't suddenly a villain for still holding onto that role after he passes away. Marriage doesn't automatically restructure a business relationship, especially one that's been running since 1996. And this isn't a one-off situation. Let's look at the example of Chadwick Boseman. He died without a will in 2020, and his estate ended up split between his widow and his parents by default, not by his choice. Nearly 6 years later, his own brothers are now suing his widow, accusing her of not fully accounting for his assets. Two different families, two different outdated arrangements, and the same result. People who loved him left to fight over decisions he never made himself. The mistakes in both cases isn't that a parent kept control or a widow held onto administration. The mistake is that nobody sat down and updated the paperwork while he was here to weigh in, to add his voice.
She said, "Do you ever think about moving?" And Tanisha basically said no, but this is when her tears started to erupt. And she started talking about his presence being in the home, his daughter having memories with him in the home, and how she doesn't want to leave the home. I think that's the bigger issue here. Now, why the mother, Miss Pamela Warner, would sell the first house in California, we don't know. We don't know, and I don't want to speculate, but I think that's the bigger issue here.
So now what looks like a mother refusing to let go is often just an estate plan that never caught up with real life, family. Never. That's not a personal betrayal. That's paperwork failure. And it's happening more than once. And that same kind of outdated paperwork is exactly what turned his wife's role in his life into something that looked more like a business deal than a marriage. Tanisha had a PhD in clinical psychology. She gave that career up to become Jamal's chief of staff, and in exchange, the prenup laid out specific payments to replace the income she walked away from. A lot of people online are calling this a business arrangement like that's bad. It's not. But it is a business arrangement, and that's actually normal. When one partner leaves a career to support the other, writing down financial terms protects both people, not just one of them. Real love includes planning for the unexpected, not assuming everything will work out fine. And that's the flaw of many of us and many families. We think it'll just all work out in the wash. Money changes people, especially large sums of money. So let's look at the numbers. She was set to receive about $76,000 a year for stepping away from her career that could have paid her closer to $90,000 a year. That's not someone rigging the system in her favor. That's someone taking a pay cut to support her husband's career.
When he passed away, again, it was not updated. His estate plan was not updated since 1996. And the estate plan was as follows. According to USA Today, 70% of his assets were left to his mother. 15% were left to his father, who has since passed away. So Ms. Pamela Warner has lost her husband and her son. And then 15% of his assets were left to his sister. And that's according to the legal petition filed by Tanisha Warner. And she explained that the fund was established before the actor met her. This was 1996. He didn't meet her until around 2015. So almost 20 years later. And it excludes any adequate financial support towards her and their daughter. And she said this was not Malcolm's intent.
A prenup protecting a spouse financially isn't a red flag. It only becomes a problem when it's never reconciled with the rest of the family's financial plan. And that lack of reconciliation is exactly what turned two grieving women into legal opponents within a year after his death. Jamal passed away suddenly while on a vacation with his family. Both his mother and his wife have spoken publicly about how much they loved him and how hard the loss has been. But statutes of limitations don't wait for someone to finish grieving. People see a lawsuit filed on the exact anniversary of his death and they assumed it's calculated in cold. But legal deadlines are real, family. Legal deadlines are real. And family, let's be fair. If Tanisha waited much longer, she may have lost her ability to file any type of claim at all. We don't actually know if she reached out to her mother-in-law first. Maybe she tried. Maybe she didn't. But that's not the same as her not caring. Here's something worth sitting with. Pamela has said she learned about her son's death through his best friend, not through a direct call from his wife. Think about what that does to a mother. Put yourself in that mother's place. Think about what that does to a mother. You weren't there. You don't know how your child spent his final moments, who was with him, what he was afraid of, whether he called out for anyone. Those questions don't go away just because time passes. They can sit in a mother's spirit for years, whether or not they're ever answered.
But this morning, she's sharing heartbreaking details about her son's death on July 20th in Costa Rica.
I heard you say when you were first told, and you live in a cul-de-sac, and you let out a scream that people from the end of the cul-de-sac came running.
Yes, they did. Yes, they did. It was from the bottom of my soul, and what came up and what came out was huge. It was an undescribable pain that resonated throughout my body.
Why were they in Costa Rica? What was the purpose of the
His
trip?
wife and daughter had been in Costa Rica 3 weeks prior. She's homeschooled, and this was part of an immersion program. And so that was the last week, was for the husbands to come, and this was the fun part.
But as the 54-year-old actor and another man went into the water at this beach in Limon, they were caught in a powerful current.
They were in the water, I think maybe chest deep, even at that, maybe waist deep. There was an undertow. And my son was not an experienced swimmer. He did not know how to deal with an undertow.
In the aftermath, initial reports stated Malcolm and his 8-year-old daughter were both spotted struggling in the water, something Pamela denies.
From what you have known, she was on
shore. She was not in the water.
She was not in the water.
He was with another gentleman. The same thing happened to the other gentleman, but he was a more experienced swimmer, and he was able to rescue himself. But Malcolm was not. That's the physical part of it, but the spiritual part of it was, that was his time. That was his time, and that was the manner in which he was to transition. And this is what I believe and what I feel.
Pamela says she is comforted by the deep conversations they shared through the years.
I'm very grateful that I was chosen to be his mother. I think more than anything, I'm at peace with everything that happened. There was nothing left on the table. There was no shoulda, coulda, woulda. I wish I had said this. I wish I had done this. I don't have that. I feel that our journey together as mother and son was complete.
This pattern isn't unique to the Warner family. As I stated earlier, Cedric Bosman's estate stayed quiet for years after his death, until this month when his brother filed a lawsuit on behalf of his parents against his widow. 6 years of silence, then legal action. Once unresolved questions about royalties and rights finally came to a head. That's the same delay, the same eventual collision, just playing out on a longer timeline. Malcolm's mother said she felt at peace with her son's life. His wife said she still can't walk through her own home without feeling his absence. Those aren't the words of two people who don't care, family. Those are the words of two people who are both still in it, each carrying grief the way the other can't fully see or understand. When legal deadlines collide with grief, people who love each other's memory can end up looking like enemies in public, even when that was not the intention. The Bosman family proves this isn't a one-time story, it's a pattern. So before you assume the worst about either woman in this story, it's worth asking what you would do in their position and what questions you'd still be carrying if it were you. Two women who love the same man are now separated by a courtroom, not because either of them is greedy, but because nobody updated the paperwork before tragedy made it too late to ask Jamal what he actually wanted. My prayer for this family is that Pamela and Tanisha find their way back to each other, not for the sake of the money, but for the sake of the little girl who's watching both of them, and for the sake of a legacy that deserves better than a courtroom. If this touched something in you. Like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and leave a thoughtful comment below. Here's what I want to know. Have you ever had to choose between protecting your own family and protecting your marriage? And how did you find your way through it? And if you've lost someone you love, what's one thing you wish the people left behind had done differently with what he left behind? You'll find links to this video and the related clips on this topic in the description. I'm Deborah. This is Family Still Matters. Because family still matters, understanding God's meaning and purpose for our lives, even in our grief, even in our conflict, matters too. Thank you for watching. And before you go, I want to leave you with one word on this. God's word. A brother offended is harder to win than a strong city, and their contentions are like the bars of a castle. That's Proverbs 18 and 19. And I'm going to explain it. That means once hurt gets between people who love each other, it can build a wall that is harder to break down than anything money or lawyers can touch. That's why the goal was never to pick sides in the story. It's to remind us that reconciliation has to happen while there's still time to choose it. God bless you.